Hello and welcome everybody. This is Roland Hartmann from Graphic in Motion. And this time I want to release a tutorial to thank all my YouTube subscribers because I just reached the magical number of 2000 subscribers. So if you take a look at my homepage, and you can go to my YouTube channel and check it out if you want. And you see now I have already 2004 subscribers, so that's really nice. I want to thank everybody. And as a small thank you, I want to provide a tutorial. And in this tutorial today, we are going to create a particle style logo reveal. And not only that, I want to show you how to do this animation, I also want to show you how to set it up to create a template. So let's take a quick preview about what approximately we are creating today. So let's rewind here and play this again. So you see we have some colored particles and they are more or less revealing a logo, and then in the end the logo will burst into particles again. So this is the animation that we are going to create, and therefore we will need Trapcode Particular version 2. So if you don't have the plugin, then maybe try to get the demo version from the Red Giant website. And yeah, let's get started. So I'm working in After Effects CS5 now, and I do this because later on I want to release this After Effects project file so that you guys can download it also, so get a free template with this tutorial. Okay, let's get started. We will just create a new composition, and the first composition I will create will be my main composition, so I name it main, and it should be full HD, and I'm using 25 frames a second, and I just want it to be 8 seconds long because this will be enough for our animation. Okay, and now the next thing we are going to do is to create a logo composition, and I will again create a new composition and call it logo and press OK. So now we can just import our logo, that we have something here. So I will go to File and Import File, and I will import my logo. So I will use my 2 lines version now and just drag it into my logo composition and just approximately scale it a bit. So in the end it should look something like this. Okay, good. Now I'm going to my main comp and I will drag in my logo comp. And now I just will create a background quickly. So I will increase my resolution a bit, and I will create a new layer and call this BG for background. This color doesn't really matter because I'm dropping on a ramp anyway. So let's go to our effects and presets and just type in ramp. You know, this is what I prefer. I generally do not use the effects, only if I do not know the name and I can't find it in my here. So most of the time I just type in the name of the effect and then I'm faster. You can also select the layer and press the right mouse button, and then you can also go to effects. But I think for me the most easy way is to just type in the name and then drag it on my layer. So for this background I want to create a linear or a radial ramp, maybe it's better, and just set this up really quickly. You know, we do not want to waste too much time here. I will just feature 2 colors of my logo here. Let's say I want the inner color to be this brighter blue here and the outer color to be this dark blue here. So something like this, and maybe I have to change this to a bit of a darker blue like this. Okay, nice. And now we can start working with our particles. Therefore we just create a new layer, and I call this particles, and I call this particles front because we will have 3 layers of particles. We will have front, middle and background particles, and I will start by setting up the front particles here. So go to our effects panel and type in particular and drag it on our particle front layer. And now we can scrub, and you see that something is already happening here. So first of all, I want the particles to start emitting from down here, and I want them to emit from a box, not a point. So I will go to my emitter settings here, and I will just change my position first of all. So let's drag this down, the Y value here. Let's say about something like, yeah, 1300 is probably quite good. We will see later on. And now I want to change the emitter type from point to box, as I said. And let's set the box size. I have to take a look at my cheating sheet here, and I will set it to 900 times 3000 times 100. You see, I'm really prepared here. I wrote down all important numbers so that we can save some time and that I can show you this, how it's working. Okay, and now I did something completely wrong because I'm in the uniform direction, but I want this to be directional. And now they are just emitting from everywhere, and I want them to emit more or less from the bottom. So I have to rotate this by 90 degrees. Rotate my emitter 90 degrees, like so. And now you see we're getting something here. So from our bottom now, there are already some particles rising, but they are too slow, they are too small, and yeah, they don't look quite good now. So we'll change this. So let's go to our velocity value here, and let's change the velocity to, what did I take there for, I think it was pretty high actually. Let's see, something like 1200. This could work out. I can do a quick RAM preview, you know, just to see the speed. Yeah, that's probably not that bad. So I will just take it down to 1000 so that we have a little bit more time here, you know. Okay, and now what we're going to do is to change the particle look, and therefore we are going to our particles tab here, and I want them to live for about 8 seconds, so they should be visible through the whole duration of our reveal. And I also, what I forgot, I also want to stop my particles emitting after, let's say, 2.5 seconds. So I will move my cursor to around 2 seconds and 12 frames. I could change this to frames, maybe better. Okay, so frame 62, and I will go to my emitter and I will set a keyframe here, and then I will move forward 1 frame, and I just zero this out. So they stop emitting right at 6.5 seconds. Okay, so far so good. So now we can deal with the look of the particles, and this will be more interesting and important. So let's go to the size of the particles. I chose a size of 80, I think, and I don't want them to be feathered. I want them to be really full spheres. And now you already see that we are getting a kind of a similar look than I have in my reveal, but of course there's a lot is missing. We only have big white particles without any shading, without any color, and without any of without the logo. So but before we start stylizing these particles, I just want to control, or just want to play around with the motion a bit. So I will just create a new RAM preview here, a quick one. And actually it's quite nice, you know, it looks quite nice, quite natural. They're moving a little bit. So if you want, you can now start playing around with the physics settings. For example, we could, in the air settings, we could use or add some turbulence here with the turbulence field, and you can see if we set this to effect position, let's say 25, and maybe scale this down, you can always visualize your field to take a look what you're currently doing, and you see that I have a very small. I want this to be smoother and affecting the positions more. So maybe like this. And now they are a little bit more chittering, you know, floating, but I'm not even sure whether this is so nice. Let's make a preview. It's a little bit too much, so the evolution speed is quite high, so I set this down to 10. Let's see what this does now. I don't like it. It's still too much for my taste, so let's set it down to 2. So what I want to do with these particles now is I could now take these particles and duplicate them 2 times and then move them in set space, you know, to get my front particles, my middle particles, my front particles, my middle particles, and my back particles. But I don't want to do this. I want to use another method. And therefore, we're just going to our, let's take a look. We are going to the rendering, no, visibility, that's it, the visibility tab, and we just play around with our far vanish value. And I will just really decrease this. And let's set it to 1800 for my front particles. The front particles just should be the big ones really near to the camera. And I can also set my start fade to 1800 because I do not want any fade. If I decrease this now, you see that they will start fading, but that's not what I want. I want them to be fully visible and then just stop being visible. So these are our front particles now. And now we'll just duplicate the whole layer. And I will call these middle. And again, I will just play around with my visibility. So now we will start the vanish. So we will, the near vanish is at 1800 because this is where and we can now just disable the front particles for a moment so that we see what's happening here. And you see I set this to 1800 and you cannot see nothing. So now I just want to turn these up a little bit, and the middle particles should be, let's say, to about, yeah, let's say 3000 is a good value here. So 3000 and 3000 for the start fade too. Whoops, this was the wrong number. Okay, and now you see we have our middle particles and our front particles. So, and now same procedure again, duplicate the middle particles and call them back. And I will just disable these for now, and I will go to my visibility tab and now change this to, let's say, yeah, like 10,000, and copy this value, paste it into the start fade, and now set this to 3000. And now I only have my background particles left. And now I could also add or, you know, change a few values to maybe create more particles in the back or more particles in the middle. But for now I will leave it like it is. Okay, so now we have our particles, but we have no nice shading, we have no logo in them. But first of all, let's just colorize them because I want them to have separated colors later on. I will just for a moment disable my turbulence field here because I don't like it. So now it's off, and I think I have it on all of my layers. So I will quickly make these invisible. Okay. Yeah, as I said, we want to colorize them. And I can now just go to my front particles and go to my particles tab, and I can just say, let's say we select the color from my logo and zoom in here and just take this yellow color, you know. And then I could go to my middle particles and take over maybe the green color, and my back particles I can colorize with this pink here. And now you see we have these different colors, and yeah, that's a really simple and nice method of coloring them. But what I like to do, and now we are switching from normal project to a little bit of template techniques. So normally when I do such a template, I create one layer which is the kind of a color control layer where you can change all colors from one point, from one set of effects. And therefore I just create a new null object. And I make this invisible because I do not really need it on my screen, you know, I don't need it in my viewport. And I call it color control and make it green so that I have a little bit of an organized thing here. And now on this layer I just will create some expression controls. And I want to have color controls. So we need 3 color controls for our particles. So let's just duplicate this 2 times and call this particles front, copy, and I could also just take these, copy, and copy. Okay. And now what I want to do is to link these values together. So I just want to link my particles, so this value here, to my color control. And therefore, for a moment, I will just lock this so that when I change another layer, these controls stay visible here. And now I press E on my keyboard to reveal my particular settings, and I go to my particles, and I hold down Alt, and I press this clock watch here, this stopwatch. And now I just, first of all, of course, take over the color, because otherwise when I link it, it will be red, and I don't want this. And now I just link the value to this value. And I now repeat this for all my other layers. So particles and take over the color before you link it. And now Alt and stopwatch, and now link it. And the next, or the same thing we do for our background particles, a particular, take over the color, and here you go. You see now we have a nice color control, and I do not have to go into any of these layers and change colors. I just can select my color control layer, and now I can just right here change all my colors on one layer, which is pretty nice. Okay, so we have our particles, and they are doing nothing than floating around here. And before we start to stylize them and give them this 3D shading, I just want to set up my logo reveal. And as you saw in the preview, then my logo was more or less visible on the particles in 3 layers. So in the front, on the front particles, it was quite big. Then in the middle, it was smaller, and in the back, it was even smaller. And that's what I want to set up now. So I will just duplicate my logo 3 times. So I have this logo, and I'll make this green for now, because this will be the logo that will just be revealed in the end. And the other ones I just need to play around now. Okay, so first of all, I want to set up my logo for the front. So I will just drag this on top of my front particles for now, and I will make it 3D. And the reason why I make this a 3D layer is because I want to play around with a depth of field later on a little bit, because Particular is automatically reacting on camera depth of field. Okay, and by the way, when I'm talking about it, let's create a new camera here. And I will just take a 35mm camera, and I just will position it a little bit further away so that we can see our particles in the front. So let's say we put this to -2500 and see. So, okay, this is nice. And just for a moment, I will make my revealed logo, or my background logo, invisible, and the other ones too, so that I'm just concentrating now on my front logo. So my front logo has to be a little bit nearer to our camera, because I want it to be big. So I really move this in set space right to more or less that it's visible full screen. And now I can duplicate my front particles, and I will drag them right above my logo layer. And now I will press F4 to reveal my track matte settings, and I will just set this to alpha matte. And now you see that my logo is only visible in my front particles. And now I just repeat this step with my other 2 particle layers. So let's take our next logo and drag it above our middle particles. And let's turn it into a 3D layer. And let's position it. Let's say I want this to be not quite as big as my front, but still big enough so that it's visible like this. And now I just duplicate my middle particles. And I could also rename these, you know, so I could particle front, matte. It's maybe better to rename them so that you don't lose yourself, especially if you're creating a template, because that's basically what we're still doing here. We are creating a template, so we have to name and organize everything so that people can find their way through this project. Okay, and now I want to again the track matte to alpha matte, and now you see this is only visible on my middle particles. And now I do the same for my back particles, so I take this logo, duplicate my back particles, drag them on top here, rename it to track matte, make this 3D2, and position it maybe just, it's not visible, sorry. Okay, and just position it a little bit far to the back so that it's smaller, like so. And now I will set the track matte to alpha matte. And now you see that this is only visible on my back particles. And by the way, which I could change a little bit, I do not really like the back particles because I really cannot see much of them. So I should have done this before I set my track matte, but it's no problem. I will just disable these for now and just delete my track matte for a moment. And I select my background particles, and now I move into my emitter settings because I want them to be a little bit bigger. So I will just change the X size here to, let's say, like so. I want to see more of them, you know. And let's change the emitter count to like 120 that we have, or let's say 150, so that we have a little bit more background particles to fill it up a little bit. Yeah, like this. Okay, and as I said, I should have done this before creating the track matte, or what you also could do, and this I would probably suggest if you create a template, that you link the values between your visible particles and your track matte particles. So it's a little bit of a tedious work, but if you do a setup for a template, oops, sorry, I touched the microphone now. So if you do a setup for a template, I really recommend to do this, because if a customer wants to change the amount of particles, and it's really annoying if you have to enter any layer and then just play around with the values, but you could link all the values from one layer or to one layer. Let's say, you know, like you see we have all our, everything that we changed or you could change, we could just link it as I did with the color control layer. I will not do this, sorry. I will not do this now because, as I said, it's kind of a tedious project, but I would recommend it if you work on a template. Okay, I hope this made any sense, but let's go on in creating this intro. And I forgot what I wanted to do now, so I was just, oh yes, I changed my background particles. So I will duplicate them now again and drag them on top of my logo here, and I rename them to matte. And now let's see what this did. Normally it should now be visible, but yeah. And now it is visible. Okay, so this is perfect. That's exactly what I wanted. And now we have no reveal, and we will just do this now, and this will be a very simple reveal, to be honest. It will be only a fade. So I will just fade it on a certain point, you know, when there are a lot of particles visible, like, yeah, this could be a nice moment here. So let's say from frame 65, I will just reveal our opacity here and set a keyframe to 0. And let's say I want the reveal to be about 10 seconds. And on frame 75, I set this to 100. And I can also ease them out just in the case. So normally I would do this with F9, but you know, when I'm recording the the Camtasia Studio is occupying my F9 key, so I have to do it with the mouse by right-clicking. By the way, I'm just right-clicking, and then you can go to the keyframe assistant and choose Easy Ease. Okay, now you see magically our logo is revealing. I know it's not that exciting, but it's working. So, and now we want to get this a little bit more interesting, you know. It's kind of a cool style like it is, but I want this to get I want this to have a little bit of a 3D feel to it. So the first thing we can do here is to create a custom particle. So yeah, let's just do this. Therefore, I just create a new composition, and I will name this custom particle. Oops. Oh man. Custom particle, and I will make it 200 pixels by 200 pixels. And in fact, it could be only 1 frame long, because this will be enough. Okay, now I will create a new layer, or a new solid, I should say, and this will be just a white solid, and I call it sphere. And you say this is not a sphere, but in a moment it will be. So now in my effects and presets, I type in CC sphere, and I just drag this on my sphere layer. And now I have to turn down the radius, and you see what we are getting here. And I want this to be a sphere that is inside my box. You know, you should not be outside of the box, just inside of the box. And now I want to change the shading and the lighting a little bit, because it's too dark here and it is too bright over here, or the difference between the 2 points is too extreme. So first of all, let's change the height of our light. So let's say it's right here, and I want to change it. Oops. And I want to change the angle. So let's say when we go back to our main comp, we can now choose where our light is coming from. So in my case, I will say, or I want it to come from here, from left top a little bit, you know. So let's go to our custom particle and set this up. So it will be like so. And light height, let's do it like this. And now I just want to change the diffuse a bit, so that we do not have such a strong specular point here. And I want to increase the ambient, you know, that's a little bit brighter in our dark areas. And what else could we do? We could just leave it like it is. And now I go back, or we can change the radius actually to, let's say, 100, because then it's exactly as big as our pre-comp or composition. Okay, and now we'll go to my logo layer, or to my main layer. And now we need another set of particles, or another layer of particles. So I will again choose my front particles and duplicate them and drag them on top of all my particles here. And now I need my custom particle, and I will just drag it on the bottom now and make it invisible. And in my new, I will rename this front and call it shading, because this will only be a shader. And now I can go to my texture, and I choose texture layer and custom particle. And now I have to change my time sampling from current time to random still frame. And now you see that we have spheres, which is nice, but now we cannot see our particles anymore. Well, we just have to change our blending mode. And I will just change the blending mode from normal to multiply. And immediately you see what's happening. We have now a real 3D feeling of our particles. So now instead of having normal flat particles, we have these 3D spheres that are revealing our logo. And that's pretty cool. So I will just do the same for the rest of my particle layers. So let's go to my middle particles and duplicate them, drag it on top, call it shading, and change the particles to sprite and the texture to my custom particle, and this to random still frame, and now the blending mode to multiply. Here we go. Pretty nice. And the same with my back particles. Duplicate the particles. Call it shading. And the reason why I do this on a separate layer and move it on top of my logo layer is because I want the shading also affect the logo. I could also do this within my particles layer, you know. I could just duplicate my particle effect here and then set the transfer mode to multiply inside the rendering here, you know. But I want the shading also affect my logo, so I put it on top of my hierarchy here. Okay, now, again, I forgot what I'm doing right now. I should not talk so much. Okay, particles back shading, that's where we are. So I don't know, do we have already our, no. We need the sprite, we need the texture, and we need it to make random stills. And we need to set it to multiply. And you see now this is working pretty nicely. And now to make this even more interesting, I will go to my camera settings and press AA to reveal my options here, and I will just enable my depth of field, and I will just increase the resolution here a bit for a moment. And let's see, we want to see something here. And I want the focus distance to be exactly in the middle, so where our logo is visible in the end. And because I am on minus 2500, I will set the focus distance to 2500, because this is exactly at the 0 point then. And now I will just increase this to, let's say, 50. There's not much happening here, you know. In fact, I have to increase this to, let's say, 250 maybe. And now this is a little bit too much, I think. So let's decrease it to, let's say, 200. Or even less, 150. Yeah, it's getting better, you know. And now I have my front particles are blurred and my back particles are nicely clear. So now we have our reveal, you know. So pretty awesome, isn't it? So I will save the project. This is very important. And now what we are going to do, and this is probably the little bit more important or fun part, is going to create this disperse or disintegration, you can say. And therefore I will need a little trick. So let's take a sip of coffee before we get started with the next part. So for my logo disintegration, I will need another composition. So let's create a new composition, and this time I want to make it again HDTV Full HD, and I want to make it 8 seconds long, but now I changed it to, I changed my timeline to frames, so I have to take a look. It's 199 frames. Okay, so new composition, 199 frames Full HD, 25 frames per second, and call this disperse, or whatever you want to call it, disintegration. But I don't know how to write this, so I use disperse. Okay, now I need my logo again, and this is also now very important if you are creating templates. So the important thing is here to always use the logo composition, so the pre-comp more or less, because then whatever you put inside this composition will be in. Okay, again. So whatever you put inside this composition will have an effect on all the other compositions. And this is exactly what you need, that the template works, so that you can, or that the customer can put his logo at one spot, one composition, and so you always use the pre-comps and not the logo as it is in your animation. And I will just explain you shortly what I'm going to do now. I want to create a small, more or less a thin stripe of my logo that will then work, or that will then function as an emitter for my particular layer. So how can we achieve this? First of all, I need to create a moving mask, and this mask has two functions. It will first of all create my emitter, and it will also fade off my logo. So I will show you this in a moment, and then it will make sense, I promise. But before, I will just create a new layer. So a new solid, and call this stroke. And on this layer now, I will just make it invisible for now. I will create a very simple mask shape here. And I want this mask not to be perfect, you know, I just want it to be a little bit of an interesting up and down, wavy, whatever, just to have some variation in it, you know. And I probably made this now a little bit too big, but I will change this in a moment. So really very randomly, and now close it. So creates a mask that looks maybe better, but similar to this. And now we are going to create, now I have to change this a bit, sorry, but this is too horrible. Make it a little bit more beautiful. I will just delete this point here and just change this a bit so that it's not so crazy. Okay, let's say I'll leave it for now. You can play around there a little bit longer. And what I want to do now is I want to create an animation, and the animation should be that just this mask is more or less just fading off or fading through my logo. So therefore I have to move to, I don't know when we want the disperse or the disintegration to happen. Let's say we have about 5-6 seconds, let's say from second number 5 to second number 6. So I go to 125, frame 125, this is my 5 seconds mark. And now I'm going to press M to reveal my mask properties. And first of all, I just want to really bring this on the top here, like so. And now I set a keyframe for my mask path. And now I move down to my 150 frame mark, and again, by double clicking, select the whole mask and just drag it down like this. And I can also easy ease these keyframes. And now you see that we have this. And this is doing exactly nothing, but in a moment it will. So first of all, we need to enable this layer again. And now I want to take my stroke effect. So the generate stroke effect, that's the one that we want to use. And I want to put it on my stroke layer. And now I will just select all masks, and I want to show this on transparent. And now I want to increase the brush size to, let's say, 20 pixels. And what I can do now is I set my logo here to a track matte of a luma matte. And now you see what we've got here is only a small stripe moving quite fast through our logo. So probably I want to increase this a bit. Let's say like not 1 second, but 1.5. I just scale this movement that it is 1.5 seconds long. Yeah, and I think this is way better. So our disintegration will last, will depend a little bit on how big your logo is, but you know, it's otherwise it will be too fast. Okay, and what are we going to do with this now? So now we move back to our main composition. And we will just drag in our disperse layer here, or composition I should say. And I will put it right on top or beneath my, I don't even know, no, beneath my logo layer, we will see in a moment. And now I can create a new particle layer. So let's create a new layer and call this particles disperse. Disperse, okay. So, and we put this right on top of our logo here. And I take my Trapcode Particular plugin and drag it on top of our particle disperse. And now I want this to have an emitter, but this time I do not want it to be a point, nor do I want it to be a box. I want it to be a layer. And I will choose my layer, and I will choose my layer emitter and my disperse layer. And you see now he says, okay, layer must be a 3D layer to fix this. Sorry, we press OK. So we go to our layer and set it back to none. Now we take our disperse layer and just turn it into a 3D layer. And now again, select it. And now it should hopefully work. And you see that we have now our disperse here, but we have no particles emitting from it. So I think this is because the particle count is too low. And so you see when I crank this up, we get something here. And I need to increase this quite high. So I did experiment around and I need to crank this up to about 500,000. So 500,000 of particles so that something is happening here. And now you see that it is only emitting particles where something is visible. And this is pretty cool. So you see now exactly when our stroke is moving through our logo, then only from this small stripe particles are emitting. And so you can create really nice disperse effects. And it will work whatever logo you put in. And I will show you this in a moment. Now one more sip of coffee. Okay. So what we have to do now is to work a little bit on the look of these particles. So I have to take a look at my cheating sheet again, because I have some values here. And we need it to be, I think, also directional. And also turn it for about 90 frames so that they're moving up. Oh, wrong, minus 90. I want them to move up. Like this. But now I have a little problem, and my problem is that my disperse layer, let's solve this for a moment, and these are not exactly in the same spot because I had to turn this 3D. So I will fix this for a moment. I want to scale my disperse layer so that it is lining up exactly with my logo. This is important because otherwise the disintegration will not work. But you see, I just have to scale it up, and you can line this up pretty easily, you know, like so. And like this, it's perfect, you know, and it will work with every logo. Okay, better, way better. So now you see we have particles and they're starting to float off here. And now let's just play around with some settings here. So we have a velocity of 100, which is probably too slow. I want to make it about, let's say, 500. And I'm still not that sure how this is working. I will set it to half now, half resolution. Let's say, actually I think that my reveal is still too fast, but I will just set it up and then we will see. Okay, so now I want my particles to have a little bit more size, and I set the size to 40 and I set the sphere feather to 0, and I want to create a size over life, and it should be like similar to this one, you know, but maybe a little bit more, a little bit smoother. So I will just draw a new curve here, you know. I want him to start small, but not at 0, and then just a gentle curve And now we can smooth this out a little bit. So this is pretty good, looks pretty good, you know. So you see, we start right here. And what I also want to do is I want to change my life. The lifespan of the particles is too long. I want them to only live very shortly, so they have a really short life, but a very exciting life. Definitely. Okay, and now to really get this going, or to really make it look good, we are going to our shading tab here, and we put on the shading or the shadow LED for our main particles. So put this on, and you will see this will create a depth and a really nice look. And now what I want to do is to change this a little bit, because I think it's a little bit dark. So let's set it to 75, and this is better. Okay, and now I still think that first of all, I think my logo is too small. So I go to my logo and I will just scale it and make it a little bit bigger. Great. Now I go to my main composition. And you see everything is updating, so I do not have to change anything here. So you see that my logo is not disappearing, and I think that my disintegration is a little bit too fast. But to check this, I will just make a quick RAM preview. So let's set this to 1/4, and I just make a quick RAM preview and see what is happening here. Yeah, you see it's horribly fast. So I have to go to my disperse settings again and think this over, you know. So let's say we're starting here and it only needs a few frames, so I have to really make this way longer. So let's say we start at frame 100. Yeah, and now it's getting better. So from 100 to, let's say, 180. Okay, now let's go back to our main again, and let's take a look where this starts, and it starts right here now. That's frame number 132, so I will just make a quick RAM preview again. And it's not bad, but what I think is that my particles are so fast. So I think I have to change this a little bit. Okay, sorry, I had to stop the recording for a moment. Okay, I'm back again. So now I wanted to improve the quality of this reveal, and the problem is that I forgot to set something in my emitter. So let's go to the disperse particles, and I will go to my layer emitter, and here I have to change the layer sampling mode from still to particle birth time. And this is the essential and important thing, which is now turning our reveal into something quite cool. So, okay. Now I can, let's say, increase this to 20% again, and now you see that we have a nice disperse, and our particles are really dispersing our logo. And now I only have to do one more thing, because I want our logo to disappear while my particles are being emitted. And this is very simple, because I have this layer mask, you know, from my stroke layer. So now I just move to my disperse composition. So I go to frame number 100, and I will just select my mask and press Ctrl C. And now I move to my logo layer, and the green one, you know, the logo that is visible in the end. And I just press Ctrl V. And now you will see that my logo will disappear while my particles are emitted. And to improve this a little bit, I will just press MM and feather out this mask a bit, you know, only a bit, not much. So only, I do not even have to do this. Yeah, and one more thing, you can really make this invisible, the disperse layer itself, because it's only our emitter. We do not need to see this, you know. And now I can just feather it a bit. let's say not much, 25 pixels, and so that it's just 25. Okay. And now you have a really nice reveal. And okay, this is it. And you see that the one trick with recomposing the logo and then using this composition all the time makes it possible that now we just enter our logo composition. And I will just, for example, import a new file. And for now, I just take the 3D Oceans logo as an example because it has some nice colors. That's why I use this, you know, and I scale it down a little bit. Let's say like so. And you can, of course, type in the text here, you know, it's no problem. So let's do this too, you know, like type in like 3D Ocean with this very strange font, whatever it is. Do not even know it. Let's see, Bazaar, interesting. Okay, let's take Bazaar. Why not? Looks very strange, but sorry, this is ridiculous. Let's take another font. I don't know, something like, I don't want to mess around here too much, but something interesting. Yeah, let's say we take just this, just for now as an example. Okay, and scale this, move it here, approximately here. Okay, and now we go to our main composition, and you will see that now, first of all, our logo is revealed. Of course, now we can change the colors of our particles very easily. So let's go to a frame where we can see our logo, you know, here. And let's go to our color control. So this is very nice to have here. And let's say we want to make the front particles, in this case, white, similar to white. Then the mid particles we want to make like this color, so that it looks pretty good. And I want to have some darker ones, you know, this gray here, maybe in the back. I do not know what this will look like, but let's take a look. So now you see we have more or less the colors of the logo, and the logo is here visible on our particles. And now in the end it's revealed, and it's dispersing. And even the text is dispersing too in a very nice way. And of course now we can change the background colors, and if you really want to create a nice color control, you can add 2 more color controls here and link them with your background so that the people really can change all the colors from one point. But I won't do this now because the tutorial is already very long. So I really hope that you like this tutorial, and again, this is for all of you, of course, but especially for my YouTube subscribers. Thank you very much for your support. And I always want to welcome you on my homepage, so please visit my homepage www.graphicinmotion.com, and you can find a lot of After Effects templates here, and of course there are some freebies here, and I also have some tutorials. And yeah, I will show you quickly that I used this technique I showed you now already for one of my templates. I spent a little bit more time, you know, playing around with this, especially the disperse or the disintegration part. As you see here, made this a little bit of a smoky look, so you can change your particle types. And I also included one version with only normal particles. So now you can create something like this on your own, you know. And yeah, please visit me on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter, whatever you like. Thanks very much for watching. Thank you very much for your support. And I really hope to see you very soon. Goodbye.